Maximilien Francois Marie Isidore de Robespierre, more commonly known as Maximilien Robespierre, led a life as one of the most notable activists in the French Revolution. But we cannot truly know what kind of man Maximilien Robespierre was until we examine his early life, events that occurred during the French Revolution, and his death in 1794. Robespierre was born in Arras, France. From a very young age, being a son of a lawyer, he adopted the mentality that all lawyers embody, such as ideas of justice and equality among all. After his mother's death, his father abandoned the family, leaving a young Robespierre in the care of his grandparents. He grew up and studied philosophy and law in the Collège de l'Orienton, where he was awarded a scholarship to the famous College de Louis le Grand in Paris. He received his law degree in 1781 and took up the occupation of his studies, becoming a lawyer in Arras. Coming from a poor background, Robespierre understood the pains of the majority of the Third Estate. His insistence on representing the poor against the rich caused a sense of unrest among some of the aristocrats and clergy. He made it no secret that he sought to foresee the fall of the existing monarchy due to his thirst for justice and his ever-growing detestation of the absolute control that the rich had on the poor. In 1789, the king, Louis XVI, assembled the National Assembly. Robespierre was elected by the people as one of the representatives of Arras, and kick-started his career in national politics and affairs. Although he was physically unimposing and socially reserved, he quickly asserted himself as a man who had the potential to lead the revolution that was quietly rumbling in the empty stomachs of the French people. Robespierre was kept out of the committees and from the presidency of the National Assembly until June of 1790, when he was elected Secretary of the National Assembly. By April of that year, he had presided over the Jacobins and began to build his name as one of the most dominant and essential figures in the French Revolution. He nevertheless decided to devote himself fully to his work in the National Assembly, where the Constitution was being drawn up. Robespierre was later on elected by the people of Paris to join the National Convention in 1792, a time where the Girondins controlled the government and accused Robespierre of dictatorship. On the 31st of May, 1793, Robespierre supported a decree of the National Convention indicting the Girondin leaders, and on June 2nd, the decree was passed against 29 of them. In the latter months of the year, he came to dominate the Committee of Public Safety, the principal organ of the revolutionary government during the Reign of Terror. 4 years after the start of the revolution, the government was in a state of crisis due to foreign attacks on all sides of the country and civil wars that were breaking out in several regions. As a reaction to the crisis, radicals, led by Maximilien Robespierre, took over the government and established a new regime that used fear as a means to maintain political stability. France was now ruled by a Committee of Public Safety, which consisted of a group of Jacobins that were under the leadership of Robespierre. During this time, several new laws that created fear among the people were introduced. To give you an example, some of these reforms would be the law of suspects, which allowed the military to imprison anyone that was suspected to be an enemy of the revolution. The most extreme reform was a change made in the court system due to the fact that the courts could only issue 2 verdicts during a trial. The accused was either declared innocent or was put to death. Accordingly, people had to be very careful to everything they said in order to avoid death. All anyone had to do was accuse someone, and they were considered guilty. Thus, the name Reign of Terror. Over the next year, approximately 17,000 people were executed by the regime, and a lot more were beaten to death in prison or streets. The fall of Robespierre began on March 30th, 1794, when he ordered the deaths of 2 popular figures in France, Danton and Desmoulins. It was becoming apparent to the people of France that Robespierre was using his power as a member of the Committee of Public Safety to basically do whatever he wanted. By the summer of 1794, he was unanimously elected president of the National Convention. Days later, a law was passed that suspended the suspect's right to public trial and legal assistance. Many members of the convention began to question his motives, so Robespierre and some of his Jacobin supporters were placed under arrest by order of the National Assembly. However, when taken to prison in Paris, the warden refused to arrest them, so he fled to Hotel de Ville. Many supporters were armed came to his aid, but upon learning that the National Convention declared him a public enemy, He attempted to commit suicide by shooting himself in the head, but he survived, only wounding his jaw. Soldiers later stormed the hotel, seizing Robespierre. He was guillotined without trial in La Place de la Concorde, thereby signaling the end of the Reign of Terror.